Dear Kenyans, it is important to note that inasmuch as we are carrying out our civic responsibility by protesting against the government for making laws, that is not going well with us as the citizens of Africa. I want us to know that we need to stop destruction. We need to stop destroying what we have built, rather standing up to protect what we have. As a matter of fact, we need to understand that the politics in the continent is not people-oriented. The politics in the continent is meant to favor the powers that be. When I say the powers that be, I'm talking about the Western power. Let me tell you something. Not too long from now, it seems we forgot so easily how they took out Gaddafi. This is of recent. I'm not talking about the past. I'm not talking about Kwame Nkrumah. I'm not talking about Julius Nyerere. I'm not even talking about these people. I am talking about the one that just happened of recent. Whatever we are doing, we must be very calculative in Africa. Because the power that be don't want us to develop. They don't want us to unite. Let's ask ourselves these questions. How come when the president of Kenya, Ruto, just left US a month ago, back to Kenya, we are having this uprising? How come that the presence of Russia in Africa is causing uprising? How come we as citizens cannot come together and unite to break the borders once and for all? How come we cannot trade within ourselves? Just how come? Kenyans, let's reason. They have put in us hate and create walls around Africa. Your fellow Africans see themselves as strangers. Your fellow Africans need visas to travel to another African countries. White fellow Africans see ourselves as very important as another African. We don't have shared values. We don't have shared prosperity. We don't even have shared responsibility. We shouldn't forget the labor of our heroes past. If we cannot bring Africa together, we'll perish together. But I think it is now time we unite Africa once and for all. Unity of purpose, unity of reasoning, unity of respect for one another, culture and religion. We are Africans. Democracy is not us. And we must learn to deal with us. Because we must solve the African problems with the African solution. My dear brothers and sisters, fellow patriots, fellow Pan-Africans, this is the time we must all rise to shaping the conversation that will lead to a developing Africa. That will lead to a developed Africa, no longer a developing Africa. We have all it takes to build the Africa of our dream, an Africa that should be of interest to every one of us. It is now time. We must stand up to the reality to know that the Africa we all yearn for is now. Nobody should come and interfere in the Africa that we want. We've got the best brains everywhere in Africa. We've got the human resources. We've got the natural resources. We've got the minerals. We've got the gold. We've got the diamonds. How come we are still where we are? Because we allow the Westerners to interfere in our matters. We don't need any loans. We need to trade within ourselves. They should not stop the aid and start trading with us once and for all. Africa for Africa. Africa viva. Dear Kenyans, stop the destruction. Let's go back to the drawing board. Let's re-strategize and fight for one united Africa. Let's go back and unite and fight for Africa that has no border. We are suffering what we are suffering today because of the borders. If the European Union can move freely within themselves, how come Africa cannot move freely within themselves? If the Europeans need just a Schengen visa to go through, a passport or a Schengen to go through all the Schengen countries, how come a South African cannot visit Nigeria without a visa on arrival? How come a Ghanaian cannot visit Zimbabwe without visa on arrival? How come we cannot trade between ourselves? How come we are having high tax rates? How come? Just how come? How come am I supposed to apply for a visa on arrival before I go to South Africa? How come? How come do I need to be scrutinized by immigration before I go to Mauritius? How come? How come do I need to go to Djibouti without speaking their own language, or we don't understand ourselves? How come? We need to break the borders. Africa for Africa. Africa Viva. We should not allow them as young blood to come and contaminate us again. Let's know that our future is in our hands. It was Kwame Nkrumah that once said, if the people are grown enough to lead themselves and you're not leading them very well, you should allow them to lead themselves. And it was misinterpreted when he said he prefers self-discipline than servitude in tranquility. Where people come and impose their right to us. They came, they gave us their religion. They came, they gave us their laws. They came, they gave us their democracy. Where is our originality? Where is the African in us? Africa, we need to rise like never before. Like never before. Africa solution for Africa's greatest needs and problem. We can solve our own problem, Africans. Kenyans, stop the destruction. Unite to build the Africa that you are fighting for. An Africa where we don't need to travel anywhere for greener pasture. An Africa where we don't need to die in the Mediterranean Sea because we're looking for greener pasture. An Africa where we emancipate our mind from the mentality that have socialized us to believe what is not true. Let's stand up. Africa, stand up. My heart bleeds whenever I talk about my continent. Africa, let's stand up. Africa, let's stop the destruction. Africa. For Africa, I say again, these Westerners don't mean well for us. Dating from the Berlin Conference, they keep dividing us, they keep causing problems, keep building walls instead of building bridges. They don't mean well for us. Let the brotherhood stand. Africa, viva.